Hello and welcome to Touchdown Nerdcast, starring Andrew, Frank, and Jordan. Tonight it is just me. Frank and Jordan are busy, so it'll be half an hour of content with only me. We have it's Thursday night, so we got some Thursday night football going on. Ravens versus the Bengals. Unfortunately, what's currently going on is that Joe Burrow is hurt and out of the game. So what went from a pretty good matchup is less of a exciting matchup from here on out. But still, it's always nice to have some live football on. This week, we've got some pretty good matchups around the NFL. Another AFC matchup is Steelers versus Browns. Steelers have Kenny Pickett, who's not really a quarterback, and the Browns have a backup QB. So while the AFC North was looking good, it could be a lot worse going forward if there's no Deshaun Watson. Kenny Pickett still sucks. Joe Burrow is hurt. All we have left is Lamar Jackson. And if that's the case, the Ravens, who are already leading the division, might run away with it. And it's never good for your fantasy positional players when your expected starting QB isn't even in the game anymore. Excuse me, I've been getting over cold recently. In our league, the Keeper League, Two Yoked, me and Frank are actually going up against each other this week. Let's see. His starting lineup right now is Trevor Lawrence, Jamar Chase, Christian Kirk, Javonte Williams, Isaiah Pacheco, TJ Hawkinson, George Pickens, and Jalen Warren. He unfortunately has Chris Olave on bye. And he has Najee Harris, but Jalen Warren has been the better fantasy player recently. Let's see. In the last 2 weeks, Jalen Warren, 12.8 and 19. He got 11 carries the first game, 15 carries the next game for 88 yards and 101 yards. So that is pretty good. And one touchdown. He also has a couple receptions, 3 in one game, 2 in the other, for some additional fantasy points there, as compared to Najee Harris. What have you done for me lately? Not that he's been bad. 16 carries in both games, 69 yards, 82 yards, 1 touchdown, a couple of receptions as well. This is really a 2 running back team now at this point. I feel like the rest of the way you could start either of these guys, but yeah, you gotta expect that it's always going to be split, so that might handicap them a little bit. But I mean, the Steelers' run game has been good, and if their defense is keeping them in games, they could be consistently getting carries. And the rest of the schedule actually looks pretty good for the Steelers. After this week against Cleveland, which is one of the best defenses in the NFL, if not the best, their schedule is not that bad. They have Cincinnati, Arizona, New England, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, and Seattle again. So I would expect Jalen Warren and Najee Harris to remain fantasy relevant options from here on out. And these guys will get you yards even against the good Cleveland defense. I just want to see what the yards per carry are for Jaylen Warren right now. He's had 26 carries. Jaylen Warren in the last 2 games is averaging 7.26 yards per carry. That's pretty good. How exciting. And then my lineup is Justin Fields, Puka Nacua, Garrett Wilson, James Cook, Jahmyr Gibbs, Chigo Okonkwo, Tank Dell, and Zay Flowers. So, I mean, neither of these teams are been outstanding this year. But they're still talented guys and guys who you think would have done better. I would say on Frank's team, TJ Hawkinson has been living up to the hype of his preseason projections. He's got 71 receptions, 681 yards, and 4 touchdowns on the season already. And he's been pretty good for fantasy. His worst week 4, 3.4 points. After that, he is eclipsed 7.5 at the worst. 7.5 is, so if you count that one game as an outlier, he has been a great fantasy tight end. So if you're going to make the playoffs, you can feel confident with TJ Hawkinson to give you comparable stats to those of Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce. That's the other thing that happened tonight. So Joe Burrow went down on the Bengals, and Mark Andrews went down on the Ravens. And so the Ravens pass game might need some assistance from some of these other guys. You saw Rashad Bateman catch a touchdown, which that guy has mostly been a bust fantasy-wise. I'm often injury-plagued too, but Lamar Jackson and the running game can't do it by themselves. So I on my team this week, I have Kyle Pitts, who's sucked to say the least, and Arthur Smith has not made it any better. I have Calvin Ridley on my bench, which I'm okay with. He's been too much of a boomer bust guy. He's gotten to 18, 21, 11, and 10 are his best weeks, but to go with that, he's got 5 weeks with 5.5, 4.2, 4.6, 1, and 3, which is a little bit too much volatility in a player that I'm starting. I'm happy to, start him if I needed him, but I think at this point, I don't trust him to put up consistent fantasy points. The rest of my team, Kareem Hunt, Dameon Pierce, Roschon Johnson is just running back depth. I'm happy to have Justin Fields back with my team. I feel like he's a 20-point floor type of player, and a 40-point ceiling, and I like that for fantasy. By the way, my team is, in this league, not going to make the playoffs. It's been a bad year. And you could say that my roster has been a bad roster. Not a lot of talent, so not surprising. But I'm happy to have him back, and as a Bears fan, I'd like to see him finish out the season strong, whatever that's worth. If he finishes the season strong, it's only making a case for himself, and if he happens to, his tenure with the Bears ends, I'd be happy to see him go, play ball somewhere else. So I would like him to play good football from here on out, and if he's good enough, continue playing with the Bears. If not, I would like to see him get an opportunity to maybe live up to his hype and play somewhere else. Around the league, let's see who else. So in our league, You've got 3 people at the top at 7-3. So I think we'll just run through their rosters real quick. We have more cowbell. More cowbell has Dak Prescott, Stephon Diggs, Zay Jones, Josh Jacobs, Gus Edwards, George Kittle, Elijah Moore, and CeeDee Lamb. So right off the bat, he's got 2 of the best wide receivers in the game. CeeDee Lamb has been amazing. The last 3 weeks, 36, 23, 35. 14 targets, 16 targets, 14 targets. Receptions, 12, 11, 11. He's had over 150 receiving yards in every game. And 2 touchdowns, no touchdowns, 2 touchdowns. That is pretty incredible. I wish I got that type of receiver, but I don't. And Stephon Diggs, besides Monday night, he's been elite as well. Don't quite know what the Bills were doing against Denver. His low point before Monday night was week 2 against Vegas with 10.1, at least in our scoring in our league. And then this past Monday night, 4.9. I don't know what the Bills are doing. I don't know what their strategy is. They don't run the ball enough. They normally hyper target Stephon Diggs, and they just didn't do that. I doubt that Denver just had him blanketed all game. But Stephon Diggs needs to be seeing 10 targets a game. So to only receive 5, that's half as much as he should be getting. And it's going to be hard to win when your best player is only getting 5 looks. But still a great guy. He'll probably bounce back. This team has some bye weeks going. Not that I would start any of these guys, but their bench is limited. So the really only option for this team is whether to start Brock Purdy or Dak Prescott. And the way Dak Prescott has been playing, 40 points, 39 points, 50.9 points. Yeah. 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns. That is incredible. And he even had a rushing touchdown. Those are some good weeks. So if he stays that hot the rest of the season, man. Yeah. I know the national media likes to shit on QBs and then praise on QBs like they're all holy. But Dak Prescott has been having a hell of a stretch. Yeah, Brock Purdy, you really can't go wrong. He's had solid performances. His floor is not so bad. Worst week was against Cleveland. I feel like a lot of people's worst weeks were against Cleveland. They're forcing the most 3-and-outs in the league. I think they're allowing opponents to less than 18 points a game, so that's not surprising. And Brock Purdy's rest of the season schedule does not look that bad. So if you have a shaky QB and Brock Purdy is somebody's second QB, I would be trying to trade target for Brock Purdy, because the guy's not going to be starting Brock Purdy over, if they have a Patrick Mahomes. Or just like this team, he has Dak Prescott and Brock Purdy. He can only start one. Both of them don't have that bad of schedules the rest of the way. I would be trying to trade for a Brock Purdy, because I feel like he gives you at least a good floor. All right, next team. Let's look at who this team might be starting or sitting. This one is saving Matt Ryan. We're dating ourselves with how far back this league has gone. So they have Joe Burrow. Ooh, ouch. Joe Burrow. If you have Joe Burrow, who gets injured in the second quarter, as your starting QB this week, it's going to be hard to win. 11.75. This is what he's going to end the day with. The rest of his roster is DJ Moore, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Travis Etienne, Rashad White, Dalton Kincaid, Romeo Doubs, Ty Chandler. He's got some pretty good players on bye. Jonathan Taylor's on bye. Drake London's on bye. Jonnu Smith is on bye. Yeah, he has Kyler Murray, but if he could have predicted the future and seen that Joe Burrow was going to get hurt this game, unfortunately for him. And he's got Kyron Williams still on IR. What's the latest on this guy? Expected to be back in week 12. Next week. That'll be a big boost. Yeah, it's easy to see again with why this team is doing as well as they are. Joe Burrow, DJ Moore, Amon-Ra, and Travis Etienne. Amon-Ra and Travis Etienne have been legit players all season long. Etienne had a rough go against San Francisco. They're one of the better defenses in the league. But he'll bounce back, I have no doubt. I feel like the Jaguars' offense is actually operating through the running backs way more than anyone thought they would. Trevor Lawrence is not playing up to the level that we thought he would. I'm kind of curious how many times Lawrence is targeting running backs and tight ends versus wide receivers this year. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's been solid all year. I think he sat out 1 week with an injury. But besides that, his lowest score of the year is 12.2. Highest score is 27.5. So, not quite a CD Lamb high ceilings, but really consistent player this year. 4 touchdowns on the year. He's surpassed 100 yards in 6 out of 8 games that he's played in, which is great. And the other 2 games that he did not surpass 100 yards, he at least caught a touchdown, which is great. I feel like anybody who drafted Amon-Ra is happy with the production they've gotten out of him. So, all right, on this team, I think he's got an interesting start decision that he's made. Right now, he has Ty Chandler in his flex spot, the running back from Minnesota, who has gotten the opportunity to get some more carries with Cam Akers getting hurt, and then Alexander Madison getting concussion. Chandler got to have 15 carries. His efficiency wasn't very good. So only 3 yards per carry. But if there's nobody else around you to hand the ball off to, and you're the only guy, that's still not a bad position to be in. So for as good as the Vikings offensive line is said to be, their running backs have not had like any production this year, or nothing mind-blowing, at least. And so he's choosing to start Chandler over Jerry Jeudy and Michael Wilson, with all these other guys on his team being on IR or on bye week this week. And I think that's a pretty good decision. Jerry Jeudy's questionable this week. He did get in a full practice. He's probably going to play. But I still don't trust the Denver offense or Jerry Jeudy. I just don't think Judy's the first person to get opportunity on that offense. I feel like the it's like the Jaguars. Is Denver's filtering more through running backs and tight ends, and receivers are the second on the list. And if a receiver is going to get the opportunity, it's Courtland Sutton. Yeah, he's going to have to be hoping that his opponent has a bad week if he's going to be getting a chance at a win with Joe Burrow going down. All right. The other team that is 7-3 is Jordan's team. And Jordan's starting lineup this week is Justin Herbert, Devonta Smith, Courtland Sutton, Austin Eckler, Jerome Ford, Tyler Conklin, Amari Cooper, and Keaton Mitchell. So far, Keaton Mitchell has not had a bad game. There's less than 5 minutes left. Fourth quarter, 33-13. I think Ravens are going to be rushing the ball to melt the clock the remainder of this one. So I don't think he's going to get that great of a score out of Keaton Mitchell. We'll see how the Bengals defense plays down to the end of the game. What their effort is, but with only 4:49 by the time they get the ball back, I doubt that there'll be a touchdown scored, so he might pick up a few more yards rushing. Really doubt that they throw the ball at all at this point. But Jordan has a pretty decent all-around team with Justin Herbert at QB. Courtland Sutton has been solid this year. He's only really had one bad week against the Jets. His lowest point total after that is 9.1. And is he leading the league in receiving touchdowns? He has 7 receiving touchdowns. So he has a touchdown almost every week besides 2 weeks. So Courtland Sutton has been solid. Yeah, but not that many targets. Yeah, I just don't feel like Russell Wilson is getting him that many opportunities. He's another guy, like, he shouldn't be at just 5 targets a game. Courtland Sutton should get 10 targets a game, especially if he's getting into the end zone. Devonta Smith, he's been a little bit more boom or bust. But nothing wrong with starting him this week. He's got 2 touchdowns in the last 2 games he's played. He almost broke 100 yards against Washington, and they have Kansas City coming up. So it's a good opportunity that game is going to require people to score some points. So I like Devonta Smith this week. He picked up Jerome Ford, which has been a pretty good pickup since the Nick Chubb injury. He's scored 23.6, 18, 7, 10, 16, 4.4, 10.2, 12.4. So, like, pretty good. I feel like a lot of teams and across most leagues, like, running back is the hardest position to keep on your roster and get production from, especially with just injuries and teams splitting carries and teams throwing the ball more. So I would love to have Jerome Ford on my team if I could. 20 carries, 17 carries. The 2 games ago against the Cardinals, he had 7 targets, so he's being used out of the backfield as a pass catcher too. So definitely a player I would like to have too. So not a bad running back too. And Jordan was the team who had Nick Chubb go down. He's got two Cleveland players as well. I mean, I guess he has three, but with Chubb being hurt, and now no Deshaun Watson. I'm curious to see how this Cleveland team is going to finish the rest of the season. They've got an elite defense, but is their QB going to be good enough to get them to the playoffs and keep that team stabilized without Deshaun Watson? Let's see. So, Dorian Thompson Robinson or PJ Walker? Yeah, I mean, PJ Walker's the veteran who can probably play a game manager style of QB. But I just love the upside of Dorian Thompson Robinson, and I like the young guy who was, everything to prove and nothing to prove. You can just go out there and play freely. When you're trying to get your opportunity in the NFL to show that you're capable of being a starting caliber player, no matter what position you're in. I just think that Dorian Thompson Robinson might be their best bet. I wonder if did they announce who the QB is going to be? For this upcoming week? Let's find out. Right now it's Dorian Thompson Robinson. Yep, confirmed yesterday. Will serve as the starting quarterback. Yeah, I like him a lot. We'll see how it turns out. When PJ Walker's played this year, he played in 3 games and thrown 5 interceptions to 1 touchdown. So, I'm not surprised. Yeah. Not expecting a lot out of him, but he got to play 1 game. I don't know that it was a full game, and he threw 3 picks in that game too. So, we shall see. I'm rooting for him. I liked watching him play in college. So, I do feel like he plays similarly to Deshaun Watson. So, I'm going to be rooting for him and the Cleveland Browns from here on out. I like their current team besides Deshaun Watson. All right, let's look. I want to see. We haven't really talked about this much, but I wanted to see what defenses have been doing. For me, the strategy I like to do is carry 2 defenses and then play matchups. Try to get the top defenses in the league anyways, and then when you're coming down the stretch, carry 2, and then you're almost guaranteed to have at least one of them with a soft matchup going against, an inexperienced QB. So in both my leagues, I have Cleveland's defense as my starting defense. I didn't draft Cleveland's defense. I picked them up. But they have been amazing. In this league, I'm looking at the only team that scored more fantasy points per week is Dallas. And It's not because they're holding their opponents to less points. It's not because they're getting more sacks than other teams. Not because they're getting tackles for loss. They are getting a good amount of interceptions per game and fumble recoveries per game. But the biggest thing is that they're averaging over a half a touchdown per game. The next closest defensive touchdown team is Indianapolis with a third of a touchdown per game. So like once every 3 games, Indianapolis is scoring a defensive touchdown. And Dallas is scoring a defensive touchdown almost every other game. That being said, that's not really what's happening. That's what the stat would make you think, is that every other game they're scoring a touchdown. But really, they scored 2 touchdowns against New York and 2 touchdowns against New England. 2 of the worst offensive teams in the league. And those are like boom weeks. They got 39 points against the Giants and 30 points against New England. And then they've had total bust weeks where they scored 1.1 against the Arizona Cardinals with Josh Dobbs, and they scored 0.5 against San Francisco. They scored 3.2 against Philly, and then their remainder of their season schedule, their last 5 weeks are against Seattle, Philadelphia, Buffalo, Miami, and Detroit. That's a rough 5 weeks of games, 3 of which are primetime games. This fantasy defense is totally being lifted up by having 5 defensive touchdowns over 3 games, and against a couple really bad opponents. They've already played the Giants twice, and the second time around, not that they had a bad performance, they still put up 14 defensive points, fantasy points, but they did not get a touchdown, didn't get a fumble recovery, allowed 17 points to the Giants. So I think you got a couple more good weeks out of Dallas's defense for the regular season, but they're not a defense that I'm going to be wanting in the playoffs. They have a couple blocked kicks, pretty good 3-and-out mark. So still a good defense, but not the one I'd be wanting in the playoffs. Cleveland's defense, not so bad on the boom or bust. Their worst week was 6.9 to Baltimore and 7.4 to Seattle, which is still respectable and about average for what somebody else's defense is going to score. And besides that, they've scored 13.9, 12, 15.9, 12, 19, 27, 15.9, which is pretty good, with only 2 defensive touchdowns so far. They're causing a lot of interceptions. In their last 5 games, they have 8 interceptions in their last 5 games. They haven't played that good of QBs in those games. They played Brock Purdy and Geno Smith and Lamar Jackson, who are okay, but the remainder of the way they're going against Kenny Pickett, Russell Wilson, Matthew Stafford, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, CJ Stroud. In week 17, New York Jets, they could be playing Zach Wilson or they could be playing Aaron Rodgers. We will find out. Alright, So I'm just going to run down what looks like to be the top 12 defenses. We've got Dallas at number 1, Cleveland 2nd, Baltimore 3rd, Kansas City 4th, Pittsburgh 5th, Jets 6th. And I would agree, all of those teams have pretty good rosters. After that, we got Cincinnati, Jacksonville, San Francisco. Pretty good defenses. New Orleans, Buffalo, Tampa Bay. Maybe we can break down who has the best playoff schedule in our next podcast episode, so that those of you who are projected to make the playoffs can maybe target a certain player in free agency or for a trade. Right now, even in this list of defenses I just gave you, in this league, 3 of them are currently unowned, so just available for pickup right now. And I don't know why these other teams are just choosing to stick to some defenses who just aren't getting the job done. But in this league, Kansas City's defense, the 4th best, free agent. 7th best defense, Cincinnati, free agent. 10th best defense, New Orleans, free agent. New Orleans might be a free agent just because they're on the bye week, but there is some good defenses in here. Yeah, like the Saints don't play anybody who I think is that scary during your playoff weeks. Carolina in week 14, the Giants in week 15, Matthew Stafford and the Rams week 16, and Tampa Bay in week 17. Like, that might be a good defense to pick up. Yeah. The Chiefs in their last 4 weeks play Buffalo, New England, Las Vegas, and Cincinnati. So it's exactly why I like to carry 2 of them, because in 1 week you could be playing Buffalo, who should score 20 to 25 points a game as like a minimum, but could score more. And then the next week they play New England. And so if you're carrying 2 defenses into the playoffs, you can start the one that has the way better matchup. Okay, well that's it. That wraps up our week 11. Is it week 11 in the NFL? It's hard to believe that much time has already gone by. Week 11 in the NFL, Thursday night football. Ravens won 34-20. They continue to lead the AFC North. But yep, we will catch you next week. Thank you for listening to Touchdown Nerdcast. Hope you guys have a good evening, and we will see you next time.